Good evening, everybody. This is Divided We Stand. It's February the 3rd at 8:13 Eastern Standard Time. Today we have a special evening planned for all of you. We hope that you'll join us. We are on Facebook. We have a Facebook group page called Divided We Stand. We ask that you join. We're not monetized at all. If you join, there are a few survey questions that you have to complete before you become a member, but we would appreciate you becoming a part of our group. We are also on YouTube. You can reach us at Divided We Stand on YouTube. And again, we're not monetized, and we ask that you subscribe to our channel. It's easy to find. Just look for the search. It says Divided We Stand. You'll see a few Divided We Stands there, but sooner or later you'll find us. Again, please subscribe and make sure you hit that bell so if there are any notifications coming your way, you'll make sure that you get them. Tonight's a special night. We are starting early. Dave and I have a good old friend. He's not old, but he's an old friend of ours from Brisbane, Australia. He's actually not in Australia tonight. We are going to be broadcasting from Cambodia, and that is no joke, from Cambodia. So that's a first for Dave and me. We normally are just in the continental United States. Before I begin, I wanted to mention something, just anecdotally, but it will apply, I think, in my view of Guy Lane. This guy's a very, very interesting person. For all of you who don't know him, he is an environmentalist and an author, and he's a world traveler. And he is the menu and the food at the same time. And what I mean by that is, I was reading something by Timothy Leary a couple of days ago, and he was mentioning Mendeleev, the Russian scientist who came up with the periodic table. And of course, Mendeleev was brilliant, and he didn't have the knowledge of electrons and things like that, but he was able to group all the different families of elements. And he attributed his ability to do that through living with the elements from the ground to the air up, being a part of them. He said that was instrumental in him being able to create, the families of elements. And I thought that was kind of interesting because I'm making an analogy that Guy is heavily involved in the environmental movement, among other things, and he'll be talking to us about that. But he is kind of like the modern day Mendeleev, if you excuse my analogy. I think because he does live these things. He's been all over the world. I know he's worked with Extinction Rebellion in Great Britain, lives in Australia, heavily involved in it there, and as you know now, he's in Southeast Asia. So he's quite the interesting man, and we'll learn a lot today from him because we haven't seen him for a while, and it'd be good to see him. So without any further ado, I would like to greet Guy and our good friend David Price from Alexandria, Virginia. Hello, Dave, and hello, Guy. Good to see all of you.
Good to see you too, Brian.
All right. And Guy, go ahead, Dave.
No, I'm just saying that it's always good when Guy shows up because you use the word interesting, and that's an understatement. So I'm just going to sit back and listen and ask a couple questions because he always provokes thought. So
right,
I'm going to bow out for a while.
Guy has a lot of lanes he goes through now. And that's not to be, no pun intended. Guy has a lot of lanes. His name is Guy Lane.
No pun taken.
But he can talk about a lot of things, and he's not a dilettante. He knows his stuff. So this is quite the guy you want to listen to tonight. So Guy, it's been a long time. Can you tell us, Guy, I think you told me already, but for the folks in the audience, can you tell us where you are right now? He's in Cambodia.
Quiet in Cambodia.
Okay.
The marvels of Brian Weinstein.
We're trying here. Okay, let me text Guy.
I pick on Brian a lot.
While we are waiting for Guy, Dave is going to sing the happy birthday song for somebody out there who has a birthday tonight.
What I'm gonna do tonight is actually, Brian is legendary in Cambodia with the Boom Boom Girls, and if you're not familiar, they're women.
I don't know what they are. Can you tell us what they are, Dave?
Yeah, in America they would be called prostitutes. And they always say, Brian Boom Boom Boy, Brian Boom Boom Boy, and it's well known. He's also known in Thailand, Cambodia, was thrown out of Singapore, but he has quite maybe we'll do a show, Brian, with your adventures, because you've had adventures with Russian Boom Boom girls, and of course Southeast.
That would be incorrect.
And Las Vegas Boom Boom girls.
Oh, I've never been in Las Vegas.
Your favorite Colorado Boom Boom girl, Lauren Boebert, and
she's wonderful.
Your favorite Georgia Boom Boom girl, Marjorie Taylor Greene. So quite a bunch. If we get to it, if we can't get Guy in, we'll see. Hopefully we can.
Very auspicious beginning here.
Well, while we're waiting, why don't if any of you are first timers here, why don't you put up a message, something like, "Hey Brian, get this thing working," or something like that. Just to let us know you're there.
Oh God, I don't know what's going on. We had a frozen screen, and there he is.
Now it isn't.
Okay, I'm just kidding. I'm trying.
That's the blackout version.
Let me see. Guess too. Okay. Okay.
That's me.
All right, we're joking, folks. Tonight we are going to have an aria sung by our David Price from Puccini's opera, and we just got a message from Guy. Okay, Dave. He says that his phone was overheating. I'll go to cafe downstairs. 5 minutes. He will be back in 5 minutes.
All right, so we'll wait for that.
We'll wait for that.
And it's funny, if you have it out there, if you haven't used this technology, it is great when it works, but it's not so great when it doesn't work. And there are a lot of things that can go wrong. Bandwidth. You're talking about. I mean, if you really stop and think about it, as thousands of viewers leave.
Okay.
But Brian's used to that. It doesn't bother Brian. Guy and I were talking earlier about the fact that here I am, 3 metro stops from Washington D.C. And Brian's in South Jersey. Well, that's not that far away. But Guy is in Cambodia, and again,
I mean, Cambodia. Some people wouldn't even know where it was on the map 50 years ago, or even now, I suppose. But now that you can do this, the only thing is that, I mean, I do know with the iPhone, if you were using it as a camera, it does get hot.
It gets hot no matter what.
It does, right? And I've used, I used to do the drones a lot. I haven't done it lately, but that really gets hot. And then all of a sudden, when it gets really hot, then you can hardly see any images. It's really that bad. So, Brian, Guy's computer. If you're wondering out in the audience, Guy's computer. We had a problem. We had him in the green room before we began, and he was getting an echo. And his computer was working fine, but it was picking up the noise from his speakers. So he decided to go with his phone, and I guess the only way to do that is just to not plug in, and hopefully we'll be okay. Because, like I said, I'm excited because it's from Cambodia. I mean, first I thought it was from Australia today, but every time we've interviewed Guy, it's been from Brisbane. But like I say, Guy's all over the world, and I want to find out what he's doing there in Cambodia. I'm sure it's related to the environment. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with Guy, he is, I would say, almost a prolific author. He writes a lot of short books about his travels, and he also travels the world. He's part of Extinction Rebellion. He has been part of the protests. In fact, I'll be able to. I think I can show that to you, folks. I can find it.
Sure. Add more technology so you can mess up.
Okay. If I can. Oh, here we go. And why don't I show a little bit of Guy here? Yeah. Whilst we are waiting for him, so that'll be fun. So here we go. This is our Guy Lane.
I guess he's also quiet in England.
You can't hear it?
No.
Okay, not a problem.
That's so much not better. Still can't hear it, Brock.
You can't hear it?
No.
Can you hear it?
You can hear music, but not.
All right, I'll get it.
Talking.
To participate in the capital of the Extinction Rebellion.
Gotcha.
Take it back to the beginning.
Okay. To my MP, and I've tried really happy that it's our site, that they're very happy that the MI5 have declared, put climate emergency on the top of their risk list.
My name is Guy Lane, I'm 52, I have a degree in environmental science, in environmental policy and economics, and I'm based in Australia, but I'm over here in London to participate in the capital of the Extinction Rebellion.
I've signed all the petitions and I've written to my MP, and I've tried really hard to convince people in power that climate change is an emergency that needs acting on, and I've just been ignored.
So I've just come back from an agricultural region in Australia where I've been selling solar power, and we've got an 8-year-long drought which has extended thousands and thousands of kilometres. We're looking at a town called Tamworth. What do you do when 60,000 people run out of water? When 60,000 people run out of water, you've got to move them somewhere, or you've got to bring the water in by truck. And this is happening all over Australia. This is happening all over the world. And in the Western world, where we've got the greatest opportunities to protest and make a change and lead the world, this is exactly where we need to be, on the streets, demanding action on climate change. And we need to be telling the government that we won't put up with their inaction on climate change and biodiversity crisis. We're out of time. We're heading into a rerun of the Permian extinction. At what point are the global elite and the governments that serve them are going to wake up and start taking expedient action on climate change? We don't have to go extinct, but that's why we need an extinction rebellion. Extinction! Rebellion! Extinction! Rebellion! Extinction! Rebellion! Extinction! Rebellion! Extinction!
All right. Let's put Guy on. I think he's back.
Crazy.
All right. Guy, I don't know if you saw what we had on. We did have a short clip from Great Britain, and it looks like you were in the heat of the moment there.
Yeah, I just, all the gear is just, it didn't work. So I think I'm okay now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Maybe you can just,
okay,
is it possible to tilt your phone? Well, okay, that's good. If you move closer, you're going to have to tilt your phone, but you're fine the way that is right now.
Okay, good. Yeah, great.
All right. Okay, well, you're going to be a little bit out of sync, but that's fine. I mean, you're everything is understandable, and you're good. So, first of all, Guy, thank you for coming on again, and we do appreciate that. We really do. Now, I'm going to let you explain because you did mention me where you were, and we said it's Cambodia. But first of all, can you tell us where you are and why you're there?
Okay, so I've been on the travel for like the last 3 months. Let me start off. So I was in Australia. I got a pass to attend COP28, the big climate conference in Dubai. So I was there for a week. Then I was 4 weeks in the UK. I had family over Christmas. And then on the way back to Australia, I figured I'd come back through Cambodia to visit Angkor Wat, which is the big temple complex, the headquarters of the capital of the the Khmer Empire. And when I got here, I found it was actually quite inexpensive to rent a property, so I rented. So I'm here. I've got 2 months here, and while I'm here, I'm writing a book. Thank you.
Okay.
You get that?
Yes, we're good. I just somebody's telling me I'm echoing, so I have to be really careful here. Okay, 1 second.
Guy, what the new book you're working on? Can you reveal what it is and what it's going to be about?
Yeah. So over the last 3.5 years, I've been working pretty much full time, and this is without pay. I just stepped away from like earning money and just lived cheap in order to devote my thoughts to this idea that the climate and ecological crisis, at the heart of the climate and ecological crisis, is an absence of meaning in Western culture, but culture around the world. Not an absence of meaning, but an inappropriateness of meaning. And so I've been sort of approaching climate and ecological crisis through the lens of worldview and belief and spirituality and philosophy, and trying to find words to put all that together so it makes sense. You can just convey it to regular people. And what I've done is I've created an organization called Vita Sapien Organization. Vita Sapien is Latin for life wise, and there is a philosophy in Vita Sapien Organization called Life-Wise Philosophy. And the idea is that it helps us become wise about our own lives and wise about our place amongst life on Earth. And I've been plotting this and doing various parts of this over the last 3.5 years, but now I've got the opportunity to actually just sit down and write the book about it. And it's going to be called the Life-Wise Philosophy Book, or words like that.
Guy, if I may ask you, and I've never thought of coming out from this angle, but when you were very young, when you were a kid, was there any inkling that you were going to be this type of person traveling the world, being involved with issues such as environmentalism? Is there any connection to the past, or is there some moment in your life where the light went on and said, I'm going to throw this away, I'm going to do this?
In terms of being somebody who travels a lot, then I did my first air flight at the age of 9 weeks old.
Mm.
and it wasn't short haul. It was from London to Melbourne in Australia. And apparently they put me in a bassinet in the overhead locker compartment, in the storage locker. And I've been moving ever since. Actually, I'm rootless in many respects, content but largely rootless. As for the environmental work, which is such a big part of my life, I explore this in the book. In fact, the opening chapter of the book talks about a time when I was sailing on my yacht. I had a 34-foot yacht sailing up the Queensland coast on this beautiful starry night. Like, it was full star filled that night. And a bird landed on the deck of the boat, a brown booby bird, Suranikigasta. And it sat on the bow of the boat, looked around for a while, checked me out, thought that I was safe, put its head under its wing and went to sleep. And I was its guardian. And I think that was one of the moments in my life when I realized that just how profound and extraordinary life on Earth, on this planet is, and how we're all intimately connected with it. There's fundamentally no difference between me and the booby bird. You know, we both come from the same place. We've both got the same reasons for being, and that. So back then, I mean, that was back in 1990, whenever, and I didn't have an inkling of this. I had like these little instances crept up through my life over the years, but what really triggered off this Vita Sapien organization and the Life-Wise Philosophy book was a realization back in 2015 or 2016 that if you actually look across the world's religions and philosophies that are adopted, particularly in the West, there's practically no reference anywhere in the spiritual philosophies, even in the non-spiritual philosophies like Buddhism and Stoicism, practically nothing of use to deal with the climate and ecological crisis. And that was my insight, particularly in New Age religion, for example. So that was really my insight, was that there was a piece of work that was missing, and I couldn't find anything like what I had in mind. So I've just been building it over the last 3 years.
If anything, Guy, I assume you might agree with me that the Abrahamic religions, like with Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, there is this idea of dominion over the earth. And it kind of is counterintuitive if you want to have a sustainable planet. And that's a tough road to go, given the world that it is today, because you have this tribalism, so to speak, this divided world, but they're all together in that one idea of dominion over the earth. Now, they may argue about who should have dominion over it, but it seems to me, as a person who's a vegetarian myself, that the animals got the wrong end of the stick. And not only that, this what was a beautiful planet is as you said, it's being destroyed. It's sick. So how do you get beyond that? I mean, I think maybe that's the whole point of maybe your religion, so to speak.
Yeah, so I actually, my neighbour in the apartment complex while I'm staying, had a coffee with him the other day. He brought his King James Bible with me, and boy, did I get an earful. But one thing we talked about was the opening chapter of Genesis, where God made the earth supposedly, and then brought in all the animals and plants, and then brought Adam in. But Adam's instructions were threefold. The first one was to dress, and the second was to keep the garden. And my Christian friend told me that to dress means basically to prune and maintain from within, and keep means to put a fence around and protect from external forces. So in a way, the actual opening statement of the Bible says, look after the garden. Now, if we would extend the Garden of Eden to the global ecosystem, you can see a global religion that has its foundations in the right place. One of the problems, though, is that it's not a particularly large part of the Bible, and it's not a theme that's actually referred to a great deal thereafter. So it doesn't really sort of ring out as an ecologically sustainable belief system. And secondly, the very concept that that was a God creature that plonked the humans into the pre-made garden just creates this enormous separation between humans and the living planet, which is actually at the very heart of the climate and ecological crisis. And just to reframe or to frame, for example, indigenous worldview, like if there was a scene with a forest and an indigenous people, the indigenous people are a part of the forest, whereas the Western people would see themselves as apart from the forest. And that's really at the very heart of the problem, is that we don't identify with moral concern for the global ecosystem, which is insane because it is our life support system. And that's really what I'm trying to get to with my work, is just to try and pull that argument apart and just put some ideas out that create an alternative model, not with the view that Christians don't become Christians anymore, they become vegans, but with the view that we can bring some Veda philosophy into practicing Christians to help them improve their ecological spirituality. And that might include looking for the parts in the holy books that actually resonate with Vita, and there's work that's been done around that already.
Guy, I'm wondering, I mean, you've been involved with this for so many years at a very high level. If you had to pick the 2 or 3, or you can have any number you want, biggest hindrances or detriments to a view that, I mean, I think it is common sense, but a lot of people don't. If you don't protect your earth, you have nowhere to live. I mean, it's just that simple. So what's keeping people from arriving at that in your mind?
I hold that what we believe is a much greater motivator of behavior than what we know. And so on the surface of it, we've got a lot of people that have a rational understanding of climate science, and they go, well, that's spooky, we shouldn't do that. But what they actually believe underneath, the little haggle of beliefs that lives inside of us, is a matrix of Christianity and capitalism and consumerism and, wealth creation and a whole bunch of other things which are motivators and drivers for them. And what's missing in there is the belief that we're all part of this super organism that lives on the planet and that we ought to nurture and protect her. And so the work that I've been doing is unique because it actually looks specifically at that in the context of late Anthropocene collapse issues and tries to tease out how we use that belief motivation to actually transform our behavior so that we become proactive environmental behavior change is what we're looking for.
Now, Dave, if you want. Well, what I wanted to ask you, Guy, because I want to make sure everybody out there clearly understands where you're coming from. With Vita Sapien, you are never have or not espousing that there's this supernatural deity. You're just saying that you're looking at the planet as almost as like an organism within itself that's we're a part of. But again, you're not pushing a god on anybody per se.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So LifeWise philosophy is secular, which is to say that it doesn't have a religious connotation. But within LifeWise philosophy, there are two little sections that if you put them together, it forms the basis of a religion. And Vita Sapien organization is actually a registered religious institution. So the original conception of what is now Vita Sapien was a religion devoted to Gaia. And Gaia is this idea that all the living creatures on the planet behave in the manner of a single organism, in that they are the ones that are actually regulating the climate and the temperature of the planet. So when I went through the process of forming the religion, I had to address an issue, was that the definition of religion that I was using was a belief in a supernatural. And a supernatural is by definition beyond science and beyond proof. And Gaia is a scientific theory. And this is why I came up with a new conception called Vitae Planeta. And Vitae Planeta basically sees all the living creatures on the planet, including the humans, as a single superorganism, a single living being. And when you frame your understanding of the world in that way, it helps you understand that we are the cells in the greater body, that we have a responsibility to the host. Now, for some people that find that all a little bit weird or they don't like the word religion, that's okay, because it's just one small part of the broader philosophy.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, Dave. Go ahead, Dave.
Go ahead, Brian. No, you.
Well, I was just saying, I just received my results, Guy and Dave, for my DNA. I did the ancestry thing. Well, not ancestry, 23andMe.
Were you human?
Well, I'll say this: I shared.
I'll
DNA
tell you, if you came
tree.
back, if you came back human, I'd get a retest.
Okay, but the interesting thing is that we share something like 99.5% of DNA anyway of a living organ, and even we do share things with trees, so to speak, and we came from one cell. So as much as somebody who's listening to this might say, okay, well, that's a little bit different, there is a certain scientific basis in DNA for this. I mean, I was shocked. For example, I saw that I was 2% Northern African, and you know how upset
10%
British.
Do you understand how upset they are in Northern Africa right now when they found that out? They want to disown you completely.
But to me, I'm an atheist guy, of course, but there is something, I don't want to say spiritual, but I had that almost spiritual feeling when I looked at the results and saying, this is real data, and I'm seeing a connection that I never would have seen if I just assumed things. And then you could even look back. I thought, relatives in London, relatives in Siberia, and maybe Mongolia. So maybe it isn't so odd to have a place in our logic saying, maybe there is this connection.
Well, I mean, there is. I mean, it's not even debatable anymore. I mean, what you just described is your relationship to human forebears. And you also described how some of the genes that we share, like 99% genes with common chimpanzees and pygmy chimpanzees. I mean, this is not something you argue about anymore. I mean, the analysis of DNA and mitochondrial DNA is extremely thorough and sophisticated, and you get all the fossil record. I mean, this is just established. The question is whether we hold ourselves, whether we believe that we're a part of nature. Like I'm saying, there's a distinction between what we rationally think and what we believe, and it's beliefs that motivate us. So you could have a scientist who looks at this information and goes, yes, I get it, but who's a Christian, but who's actually driven by his actions are actually guided by the belief that he was plonked here by the God creature. And this is why, again, Beta Sapiens is unique because it approaches this whole Anthropocene collapse problem through the lens of spirituality, through the lens of belief, through the lens of philosophy and worldview. Did you have any Neanderthal genes in your?
Yes, I do. I have 221 Neanderthal genes,
right.
And I think I have more Neanderthal genes than 23% of my group, but not like some people have 90% more.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
Okay, but they said that. But what is interesting, gentlemen, is that they said that some traits that Neanderthals have, the genetic traits, one would be that I have a hard time putting things away, and that's true. I like right in front of me. There's a lot of things on the desk that I have to see. I can't put anything away, or not such
That's
a
called
great
being
sense
slovenly.
of smell. Slovenly, right? Okay.
Yeah,
but,
so don't try to hide behind genes on that.
No.
You're
You don't know that.
You're disrespectful to your office environment.
But it makes sense. Well, look, I was speaking with somebody who used to work for the Gamaliel Institute in Russia. He's now in the United States. He told me that in China, 1 in every 7 people have Genghis Khan's DNA. So there is a connection, even to the past, and even a political connection. I don't want to get into politics now, but that authoritarianism of Genghis Khan has been around since 800 or whenever in China and in Russia. So it doesn't necessarily leave you. And there is that connection with the past to the present. And it's there in my DNA. And I'm certainly not the only one.
You know what? That makes me think of something. I mean, I think, again, my take on the broad spectrum of humanity is it's not really good at looking and really understanding the past and learning from it. And it's not real good about looking to the future. And I think some of that comes from us, and more so in modern times, it's the immediacy. We'll get through today. Well, I'll make money today. I'll do this. And not without any really, forethought. So my question, Guy, to you is, we're talking some high level stuff tonight, but what would you suggest someone who just feels overwhelmed by this, but knows there's something wrong with the environmental picture in the world? What are some small things they can do? One, of course, we'll sell your book. I mean, read your book and change philosophy. But steps prior to that, what's some, a normal person, whatever that is, can do? Do you have any suggestions for them?
Well, the first way to start would be to get your philosophy right, and that's obviously what I'm writing about. But in the sort of really general sense, rather than the detail, it's understanding that we're here for the same reason as the trees and the bees and the whales and the snails. We're meant to be here, right? In as much as every other living organism is meant to be here. So we're not imposters. The fundamental distinction between humans and the rest of the living world is that they do their job, right? Where we're not doing our job. The job in this philosophy is to pursue our personal interests in a manner that makes a positive contribution to the well-being of the whole. Every organism, let's just think of a whale for a moment, pursues its life interest, and in so doing it's cycling nutrients, it's moving carbon, it's a store of carbon, it's participating, its poo becomes the food for the phytoplankton, its body eventually becomes the food for the creatures on the seafloor. So every organism is basically doing its job, whereas humans have free will and we're off in all sorts of different directions, and we're doing exactly the opposite. We're unwinding the greater body through our destructive habits. And so the first thing I get people to do is just to sort of reframe themselves in that broader context, because what that then does is it offers a pathway for right action. And that's really at the heart of the Vita Sapien work and Lifewise philosophy, is to sort of frame the right relationship to the nature, and then it lays out a series of practices that one might engage in order to fill your days with right behavior.
Now, again, taking us back around, religion is, something, it's one of those things you're not supposed to talk about, right? And the idea of that, is not good, because we need to, be exposed to other ideas and things. But if I understand correctly, the religious part of your philosophy, science kind of thing going together, it can work in conjunction with other religions. Am I correct in that? I mean, if you wanted to be a Christian, you could still subscribe to what you think is a good theory for the earth.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. So, absolutely. So my friend in New South Wales has a PhD in forest governance, and he spends his days running interference on destructive forest practices. And he's either actually out in the dirt with his boots in front of the bulldozers, or he's sitting in the offices with ministers. He's made a total commitment of his life to protect forests. When he returns home, he walks past a religious icon resting against a tree, carved into a piece of marble, and he has a deep Christian faith. And I talked to him about this, and I said, "You're a beaten Christian," and he said, "No, I'm a Christian beaten." And so we're still arguing about which is which.
Right.
But the whole concept was, you don't have to stop being a Christian in order to follow this philosophy and become a good citizen with respect to the ecosystem. I'm in Cambodia right now, and over here there is a fusion of Hindu and Buddhist beliefs. In Japan, there is a fusion of Buddhist and Shinto beliefs, and this is called multiple religious belonging, or multiple philosophy belonging, or religious syncretisms, in other words. So it's not uncommon for people to fuse different faiths in order to have a more balanced view of the world.
Guy, in your years of dealing with the environment, are you more optimistic now, more pessimistic, or do you look at young people? That they're always our hope, right? Where do you stand on that question? Is it not asking for apocalyptic feelings, but how do you see the world in terms of the environment?
So part of getting your philosophy right, is to have a firm grounding in the proper understanding scientifically of where we are right now. And it is possible that we've actually already passed the major climatic tipping points, which are going to take the planet 6 or 7 degrees above baseline and wipe out most life on Earth, with us in the first tranche. So that may already be the case, but we don't know that. It may also be the case that we've actually got time, if we get our skates on, to actually pull enough carbon out of the atmosphere, restore enough nature, that we can actually stabilize the blood loss of the planet, okay, and then bring her back to full health. So I don't profess to know the future, although I read science papers that try to create scenarios, and we're in a bifurcation. It could go either way, which is even more reason why we need an army of people to actually start getting clear in their head and start acting to pull back the destructive systems of power which are actually taking us over the cliff.
Guy, you had a comment from our audience. We've had a lot of comments, actually. But this user says, "This is fascinating. Please tell Guy thank you. And then also, please tell him that I'm also an environmental scientist and engineer, but left that to grow over 1 million trees a year for my family's third-generation nursery. We may soon be at 2 million trees. The vast majority of our trees are native trees." So you have a lot of fans out there.
Fantastic.
But Guy,
great.
Along with what Dave was asking you, you do know, of course, that there is a group of people who think that this is it. There's nothing we can do. You know that we had Guy McPherson on the Reality Report. I tried to set up a conversation, a dialogue between you and Guy in the past. And a lot of people say there's no debate. This thing's going down. I'm not saying they're looking forward to it, but there seems to be this idea that I hope it happens because I said it was going to happen. So I want to prove myself. What do you say to that type of mentality? Well, maybe not that mentality, but the mentality that there's no chance coming back from 1.5 and we're done in a couple of years once we get a blue ocean event.
Yeah, I think that the term that I think is commonly used is doomerism, right?
Right.
Which basically holds that of my two scenarios, it's all over. There's nothing we can do. So just don't waste your time and effort trying to fix anything because it's finished, right? So I think that is actually more of a psychological framing than a rational framing, because some people are just born doomers, and when you look at the data, there is plenty of data to support that evidence. Okay, right. But if you look at the same data, there's also evidence to suggest that we can get out of this mess. So the question is, what is driving what is actually motivating you to believe one thing over the other? And I think that doomers simply just have a particular psychological profile that they're always going to just assume it's ruined, and any evidence to the contrary, they'll just go, well, look at the balance of evidence in the other direction. The problem with doomers is, look, there is precious few people actually having these sorts of conversations. For the most part, Christians aren't having these conversations, right? The more sort of extremist your Christian views, the less likely it is that you're actually going to be caring about the planet, which is not to say that there isn't a subset of Christians that are deeply passionate. In fact, Catherine Hayhoe, who's a famous climate scientist, is actually a Pentecostal Christian. She speaks openly about her faith and her science. But broadly speaking, if you follow the Christian tradition, you're not going to see yourself as a part of the ecosystem and act as though your body is being infringed upon by climate and ecological collapse. The other Abrahamic religion, Islam, for example, has got a similar problem. So there's 3 billion people straight away who are not in the fight. Okay, so then you've got your right-wing crazies who, for political reasons, reject the idea that there's a climate problem.
Right.
Okay, so that's another big chunk. Then you've got your doomers. That's another big chunk. And by the time you actually go through all of these chunks of people who are just going, nothing to do with me, right, or not interested, or I don't believe it, or whatever it is, right, there's precious few people left. And what I'm trying to do with my work is I'm trying to reach out to everybody who is out there who feels this, and I'm trying to say to them, it's time to really get on board and lift your game, because we're out of time. If we continue to put 40 gigatons of carbon in the atmosphere, and we just continue to do that year after year for the next 5, 10, 15 years, it's game over. It's game over, right? We know from paleo records that, say, back in the time of the Permian extinction, there was a gas outpouring, a greenhouse gas outpouring from big volcanic eruptions in the Siberian region, which over the period of about 20,000 years heated the planet up about 6 degrees. It killed off life in the ocean. The ocean lost its oxygen. It was too hot. It's stratified, which means there was no further mixing of the surface waters with the deep waters. It grew this hydrogen sulfide-based bacteria, which poisoned the ground further. We lost 90% of life on Earth 230 million years ago from a greenhouse gas emission, on par with what we're doing now. But what we're doing now is 100 times faster. Right? So we know where we're going because we've been in that place on this planet numerous times. And the urgency of the situation cannot be understated. In order for us to actually resolve the issue, we've got to work together as a planet. We've got to bring all the countries along on the journey. And this is why I've been going to the big UN conferences. I went to UN CBD COP15, which was the biodiversity talks in Montreal in 2022. And I went to COP28, which is the climate talks in Dubai hosted by an oil man this year. Okay, and so this we've got to get this stuff sorted, and we can't rely on probably 80% of the world's population. Okay, I mean, if you just frame the West, I normally just talk about the West. Let's ignore the rest of the world for the moment. Within the West, you can't rely on 80% of the adults to help. They either don't have the mental faculty to get their head around it, they don't have the empathy, they've got the wrong religious or spiritual or political views, or they're doomers. Okay, so it leaves a small packet of people. My modeling suggests that there's around 8% of the Western adults are going to be resonant with this message and will adopt LifeWise philosophy as their primary life philosophy that shapes their beliefs moving forward. And that was the very conception of this idea, was to recreate basically a new version of Stoicism. Not to recreate Stoicism, but to recreate a new sustainable life philosophy that could be held by the educated classes in the Western world, to give a common frame of reference, to help us all get a common language and to get all pointing in the right direction. And just to go back for a second, Stoicism is a philosophy of the ancient Greeks. It was founded by a guy called Zeno of Citium about 3,500 years ago, but it came to be the main philosophy held by the educated classes in the Roman period between the end of the Republic and the beginning of the Empire, a time of great economic growth, expansion of territory, political turmoil, exactly the sort of stuff that's going on right now with the clean energy transition. The educated classes had a common philosophy called Stoicism. It's about pursuing eudaimonia, which is effectively living a good life. How do you live a life that's good for you and a life that's good for your society? I'm trying to create the new version of Stoicism with the view that it becomes a philosophy that the educated classes can use as their frame of reference, and in so doing get the power of the numbers to make up for the fact that they might only be a small proportion of the actual overall population. But what we know from the literature around used by the Extinction Rebellion is that you only need a small proportion of the public to be passionately holding a view for it to actually shift society. Now, Extinction Rebellion numbers were saying that none of the non-violent rebellions had failed over the last 200 years when 3.5% of the public were actively involved. And actively doesn't mean they're necessarily on the street, or involved in all of the back-end services, right? So my modeling suggests around 8% of the Western adults could adopt a sustainable life philosophy like LifeWise, and that could be what is necessary to tip the system in the right direction.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that the last time we spoke, and that was very helpful to me because, as you know, I speak to a lot of people from Russia. Tomorrow I'll be speaking with them. Today I spoke with them. And most Russians, quite frankly, Guy, and you probably know this, don't really give a damn about climate change. And even if they did believe it was actually occurring in their minds, they see it as something in their minds it's good because it's so cold. What's so bad about being 4 degrees warmer? And then I think of China. Well, the Chinese obviously are getting involved with creating alternative energies, but I don't know that the average Chinese citizen actually thinks too much about it. So I guess what you're saying is, I mean, you understand that most of the world isn't consciously thinking, what can I do to help? But you're saying that you've got to have like this meteor, this group of people who can energize it and can actually save the world.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the scale of the problem is so vast. Like you say, I mean, China is like the largest emitter of CO2 gas. Russia, actually, I'll give you a little anecdote. So there's one of the numbers that they use in climate science is called climate sensitivity. It basically says if you double the CO2 in the atmosphere, how much hotter does it get? And that's still been argued and debated to this day. But the very first time it was plotted was by a Swedish scientist called Svante Arrhenius. And he actually did these calculations by longhand with a pencil and a book. And he came up with the number 4 degrees Celsius, that if you double atmospheric CO2, you'll end up with a planet that's 4 degrees hotter. These are numbers that are consistent with the supercomputer modeling. So it's somewhere around that, which is really scary because we're on a pathway to doubling CO2. At the time, this was 1896, when Svante Arrhenius.
They didn't have the benefit, just like Mendeleev. They didn't have the benefit of that information.
No. Wrote it by hand, right? Mm-hmm. He was Swedish, and he says 4 degrees Celsius increase in temperatures. Sounds good to me. It's freezing over here.
Right.
The problem is, right, the 4 degrees Celsius doesn't mean to say it's going to get 4 degrees warmer at night. That's a global average temperature. And what we know is that the global average temperature is extremely finely balanced. And it's been balanced for billions of years because living organisms have balanced it by sequestering carbon, by releasing carbon, by putting up aerosols that create the clouds to have the albedo effect, which reflects the sunlight to keep the ocean cool, all of these different mechanisms. And what we've done in the last 200 years is we've destabilized the natural systems that maintain the stable climate and keep it within what they call the dynamic equilibrium, the threshold of temperatures, which is nice and steady. 4 degrees global average completely wrecks the whole climatic system of the planet, shifts winds, shifts rain belts, and we've built 12,000 years of agriculture based around a weather system that broadly hadn't changed that much in 12,000 years. And now it's going absolutely haywire. So this 4 degrees business needs to be understood in the context of the global average. We're now about 1.3 above pre-industrial baseline temperature.
No, I'm sorry to interrupt. Is that centigrade or Fahrenheit we're talking about?
Celsius.
Celsius, okay.
Yeah, okay. And even at 1.3, I mean, like 2023 was just this year of insane weather events. Not necessarily for you personally, which is, again, part of the framing that I'm trying to give you, that you need to understand this and globally. But around the world, there was just the most insane flash floods and droughts. I mean, there was a whole city taken out in Libya, Dera, it was called. Had this massive rain event came in, took out 2 major dams, killed 20,000 people as the guts of the city were washed out into the Mediterranean. The sea surface temperatures in the North Atlantic are just through the roof. Antarctic sea ice extent has collapsed by about 20%. Canadian wildfires last year, absolutely through the roof. So we're already seeing the meltdown of the whole climactic system with just 1.3 degrees increase temperature. And the UN's target is that we get to 2, right? And we're probably heading close to 3.
Right.
And that's not taking into account all the feedbacks, positive feedbacks, which is, for example, as the sea ice contracts, then more of the sunlight penetrates the ocean, doesn't reflect back to space. The ocean gets warm, which melts more ice. And so so this is the concern, the cascade of climate tipping points, the runaway feedback, the runaway greenhouse effect. I mean, these things are all right here, right now. And this is why we need to raise this army of people who are motivated by the most powerful motivator of human action, which is a spiritual bond to something greater. And what I'm trying to do with my work is I'm trying to have them attach that spiritual bond to the living planet of which they are a part, and that serves as their life support system.
Guy, just a question here. A number of religions have a component of human sacrifice. Do you think we'd be better off environmentally if Brian, if we could sacrifice Brian? He doesn't have to. We could either sacrifice him or he could self-sacrifice. Do you see that as environmentally sound procedure? I mean, I think. I mean, I do. But I don't know.
This is actually this is the second time I've been asked about human sacrifice as part of
really. I think you don't be as stupid as I am.
Yeah. No.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Okay.
Haha, Dave.
I think again, we should never judge the whole by what we know. But I think I've run into a number of people who say it doesn't matter because it will be God's will, and that always bothers me. Simply because who knows what God's will is, B, if you're Brian, you don't believe there is a God, and there's a number of those people. But it's the parts that get neglected. The Bible also indicates that God wants you to act, and this is the way to do it. I think, but I liked and I forget who put up the comment. Even if you believe doom is there, you can still continue to do something. That's why I think it's so important.
Yeah.
I think it does get overwhelming. Look, on our regular show, Divided We Stand, we really kind of just acknowledge that the environmental crisis, the changes that we're going through, is over and above everything else, right? I mean, without the world, you don't have anything else going on. But politically, okay, there really had, in America, unfortunately, we have we're a two-party system. We get some independents to run, but it's almost meaningless. And neither one has been stellar, and there's reasons for that. I mean, but I still think that I would encourage people that believe that we're in trouble environmentally to look at any candidate running in your area and find out where they stand. It doesn't mean they can even act on it. I mean, I understand that, but at least their understanding of it, that they're not a U.S. senator who brings a snowball into Congress and says, what global warming? And that's a fact that happened. So how do you get to the minds of those people? I mean, your 8% I got, but that is only good if those in charge are listening to that 8%. Is it your hope that it will be, the arguments will just be so convincing that they'll almost be forced, or by the power of truth? Is that kind of the way it works?
Well, the arguments already are so convincing, but what is standing in the way of good governance is that we have a powerful economic and political elite on the planet and within each country, which is wedded to a particular form of business, which is growing the global economy based on fossil fuels. This come out of COP28, and what happened at COP28 was Sultan Al Jaber, who is the CEO of the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, who is the president of the climate talks, has basically just got the world's governments to sign off on allowing the fossil fuel industry to continue doing just what the hell it was doing before the meetings. And there's no real plan to transition away from fossil fuels. There is a plan to increase the amount of renewable energy on the planet 3 times over, which is a good start, but still only a small part of what we need. And there are plans to try and suck carbon out of the atmosphere. And a lot of the people that are putting their hand up to do that are oil companies that have got these depleted oil wells where they can theoretically suck the carbon and pump it underground. Like, the whole thing is thoroughly corrupted. The global elite are insane. And at the heart of the problem, sustainability, the heart of the sustainability problem is not absence of money, it's not access to finance, it is not technology, it's not a deep understanding of the Earth system, it's not that there aren't thousands and millions of people around the world concerned and active. It's a power crisis. It's a crisis of political power. And right now, the wealthiest people in the world are insane. And that's fundamentally the problem. And unless you can figure out a way to shift that, then we're still stuck, right? And this, again, is where the 8% of supercharged individuals comes in to try and puzzle that out. And one of the supercharged individuals out there is Roger Hallam from the Extinction Rebellion movement. And his model was basically saying that if you can get enough people into the capital city, that you can gridlock the capital for 2 weeks by having tens of thousands of people just running interference on the free flow of traffic, for example. That's enough, history shows, to actually foster radical political change. And radical political change is what you need to do in order to shift power away from the insane elite into a different place where the decision making is sensible and rational and in line with an understanding of how the Earth system functions. Now, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how you do that in America. I don't know how you do that in China or Russia. But a part of it comes in from having enough people who are deeply passionate, wise, and connected to be working in the system, looking for the gaps. One of the other aspects of this transition that we need to do is it's going to be really, really, really good for business. Every time in history there is an energy transition, whether it will be from water wheels to coal, or from coal to oil and oil to gas, or the beginning of nuclear, there is a massive expansion in economic activity. And that's basically been held back right now because the fossil fuel industry is still dominant in the world. They produce around 80% of the world's energy, and they don't want to let go of that. And they're thinking, and if you listen to some of the CEOs talk about the future, they're saying that they'll still be producing 80% of the world's energy in 20 or 30 years' time. And they're effectively signing the death warrant, not only of the human race, but most life on Earth as a result.
Guy, in a few minutes, we'll be switching to the politics. So, A, thank you for being with us. You're welcome to stay around and listen to Brian's inane comments if you want to. But
okay, Dad.
Bring us back. Divided we stand, Brian, and I kind of an agreement that, you don't get the perfect. You have to be practical, and you get what you get. If you were advising Americans based on what you know of Joe Biden, President Biden, and what you know of Donald Trump, speaking environmentally only, which is your area of expertise, would you suggest that they choose one over the other? And if so, whom would that be?
Oh, if you had the choice between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, I mean, Donald Trump is a disease of the human race, and so go for Biden, I would say. With that said, Biden needs to actually really stand up and lead with respect to climate. I mean, we need the United States. The United States is still the leader. It's still the dominant nation in the world. And the Inflation Reduction Act has done a lot of really good stuff. But they've got to really start winding back the fossil fuel industry and make a really clear statement that it's over. The fossil fuel industry is over. And we need an orderly transition into extremely disciplined use of energy, and then sustainable energy to replace that we still need. And we can do that. We've got all the machines, we've got all the finance, we've got everything we need, but we don't have the powerful people at the top actually pulling in that direction. Now, the American presidency doesn't seem to have as much power as the combined weight of the fossil fuel lobby in the US.
Correct.
But this is where your smart people come in to try and puzzle out how to fix the thing. And right now, the fossil fuel industry is coming under assault from all different directions, whether it be, there is a protest going on in Holland where the Extinction Rebellion activists have blocked the A12 leading into the capital. And the specific call is to end fossil fuel subsidies, which are in the tune of about 40 billion euros a year from the Dutch government. Okay, so that's one approach. There's all of these lawsuits going against fossil fuel companies because they knew of the crisis that was coming back in the 70s and maybe even back in the 50s, because the science was really basic and clear, and they engaged scientists to do the work. So eventually we've all just got to fight this evil industry and get it off the planet, because it's rerunning the Permian extinction 1,000 times faster.
Guy, if people want to get a hold of you, because we've had a nice crowd tonight watching, if they want to get a hold of you, where can they reach you?
So vitasapien.org, vitasapien.org. That's the website. It's all there, including an early version of the LifeWise philosophy book that you can get as a PDF.
And I'd be remiss not to ask you, because I remember you have is it the verdant pendant there? That's not a Quen, is it?
This is a Quen. So
it is a Quen. Okay.
Pendant. Yeah. Like that. Yeah. So this Perfect. Is you can read about it on the website, but it's a powerful environmental symbol, and it's just an icon of jewelry. And we make a bit of money if we sell these, and so and people comment about them. I get comments all the time that people go, "Oh, that's really interesting." And it's got a magnetic clasp. You just sort of pop it off, and
Gotcha.
and people's eyes go like, "Whoa, what's that all about?" So it's a way of creating a conversation with a stranger about climate and ecological issues by wearing a Quen pendant, and you can buy them through the website.
Okay, so you have the website there, and will you be having a YouTube channel also?
Yeah, there's a Vita Sapien YouTube channel,
Mm-hmm.
and a Facebook group that goes by the name Perium, Perium, and also a Guy Lane Twitter.
Well, I know Perium because I'm a member of that one, so that's I get a lot of my things that I share from there, so it's really, really well. Dave, Guy, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. And again, you're welcome to stay with us. We're going to kind of go off air for a couple minutes, then we'll come back on again.
Okay.
But if you want to, you're welcome. If you got things to do, we certainly are.
I won't stay on, but I'll check it out from.
Cool. And
online.
I will certainly send you a link of this video from YouTube. I'm sure you'll want to.
And Guy, you can do what I do if I view the show later. Mute Brian and just listen to the smart people talk.
Dad, come on, knock it off.
The best way. I've always subscribed to that.
Causing problems again.
I'm always listening out for the Neander hole within.
Yes, and we'll be discussing on the next part of the show, everyone, Brian Weinstein's adventures with the Boom Boom Girls in Cambodia.
Hey, we Neanderthals don't do that kind of stuff.
No. Hey, and listen, this has been a valuable conversation. And really, we've just touched the outsides of the work.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're up for it, I mean, I'm happy to come back and do more of these conversations.
Anytime,
Guy, it's always a great interview.
Well,
here.
I mean, okay, great. Look forward to the next one.
All right, we'll do that. We'll definitely do that. You want to do it the next month? We'll be glad to do it. All right, everybody. We'll be back in around 5 minutes.
Not 5. Why do you need 5 minutes? You have to go to the bathroom?
I need a drink and whatever. I need to refresh myself.
Real troopers go right through. Okay. You're embarrassing yourself in front of the audience.
And Dave will be performing an aria from Puccini's great opera.
Do you ever see Stormy Daniels stop in the middle of her routine and say, "Oh, I must go to the bathroom"? No, she's a professional.
I've got to adjust myself after having to deal with you for 60 minutes.
What? I'll stay on the air then.
Okay.
You go away. You go to the bathroom. Hey, take the camera.
A real drink. This was great. Thank you both to allow me to take part.
We appreciate that.
We're real happy with everybody here.
And
Guys, everybody really enjoyed it. So, and we'll do this really soon. All right. So we'll finish up. And again, Guy, thank you from Cambodia.
And don't turn it off. Just leave it on. I'll talk about you while you're going to the bathroom.
All right. Guy, we'll see you, and we'll let America.
Okay. See you later, guys.
See you later.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we respect you as people, and therefore we're not going to show you Brian going to the bathroom. I don't think we're up for that. But what I would say is, for those of you who have not watched the show before or tuning in for the first time, I'm sure we have a few people. If you put comments up and if you have questions, because it's kind of just, God, there goes Brian's music again. We can respond to those, and that's kind of more fun because we don't pretend to be. Do you have any idea where he gets his stuff from? I don't. This is what I have to deal with. Brian is, what should I say? Not, what word am I looking for? Competent, maybe is the word, or I don't know. Anyway. Really, that kind of music. Anyway, soon Brian will be back. Too soon, I hope. But in all seriousness, if you do have, please send in your comments during the next portion of the show. We'll probably run over a little bit. The normal show is 9 to 10. It's 9:21 now. And who knows what time we'll end? I don't know. But the other thing I would say, and I always say it, so I'm going to say it right now to you, is if you encourage anyone to join the Facebook page, where we have quite a few members, in the thousands now. If you do it directly, remind them to answer. There's like 4 or 5 questions, because Brian's decided, and I concur, that we want to make sure that we're all not of one mind, but we're all agreeing, that we won't troll on the site, that we do believe certain things. This is the kind of music Brian listens to. Does it make any sense to you? I don't get it. But hey, what do I know, right? It's just Brian being Brian.
I'm coming back.
That is the worst music. You are. I just think we ought to sacrifice you Anyway, you're like an embarrassment. North Africa is now up in arms because you announced on air that you are 2% North African, and they're saying no way. And the only thing you want to do is you want to go to Uranus, and that's where you went on the break. Turn the music off.
All right. Now it's jazz
Aging hippie.
time.
Hey, Aging.
We're going to go over the top 10 jazz
Turn
tunes.
Turn the music down.
From Downbeat Magazine.
You know what?
In 1957.
Brian, seriously. I would be mortified.
Every time he says seriously, he's joking.
No, I would be mortified if I had your musical taste. I can't believe it.
I put on the most bizarre thing I could put on while I went away.
Don't hide behind that. That is what you listen to. Who's the guy you like so much? Alan Rickshaw or somebody? Who's that guitar player?
Rickshaw Holdsworth. Alan Rickshaw.
I don't know. Alan Rickshaw.
Yeah, I'm going to be pulling a rickshaw up Market Street. New job next week.
That'd be good. As long as you're not on the show, people will be happy. All right.
All right.
Let's get.
All right,
Now,
let's get to the politics here.
For anybody just coming in, we did a special hour-long, actually ran over a little bit hour, which is great with Guy Lane, and I hope you all enjoyed that. I know I did. And I have to say this. I was going to ask Guy. I've asked Guy before, but maybe it's an American insecurity, but a British or Australian accent always makes people sound more intelligent. I just get that feeling. But he really is. He's a unique individual.
He's a really intelligent guy.
And I think the key thing is for me is the take is, even if it is doomsday, you fight until it is doomsday. If that makes sense.
He's a fighter, and like I say, he's the food. He's not the menu. He does it. He's involved.
And the numbers, people go, oh my God, only 8%. But if we're the right 8%, right? I mean, really the brightest, you would hope that some of the best and the brightest would understand. But weighing all that down is some of the things we talk about, and we won't do a lot tonight. But I have a couple things for us. So let's start with something that's going on right now. The Civil War is beginning in Texas as we speak. Mm-hmm. So Brian, why don't you just tell me briefly what you know, and then I'll fill in.
All I know is that there's this huge convoy allegedly going down to the border where people. It sounds like it seems like vigilantism by truckers.
Well, that's exactly it. So let's just kind of put what brought it on. Okay, we know without a doubt that there is, pick the word, crisis, problem at the border. Something. Now, here are the statistics behind it. And one of the things that I despise about social media now, and I'll comment a couple of places tonight, we just throw these numbers out, either numbers we don't know or no numbers at all, right? So these are the best documented numbers that I know. All right. In both 2022 and 2023, more than 2 million people coming from Mexico to America were turned back. Gary, you are nearly an insult. I know. I wasn't going to mention you. Anyway, you got 2 million people turned back. So that means a lot of people, correct, Brian? 142,000 were deported in 2023. That's a significant number. It's estimated currently that there are 11 million people in this country illegally. And on December of this year, or the previous year, December 23, there were 302,000 encounters of unauthorized migrants at the border. So to say there's not a border problem or a border crisis is wrong. There is.
Absolutely wrong. Right.
Now, the question becomes, how do you resolve it? Well, what's happening in Texas is, as you know, there's not really a border crisis in Nebraska. There may be an immigrant, a problem, but there's not a border crisis because it's not a border. So, who has, it falls to Arizona, California, Texas. Texas, probably has the largest border, right, with Mexico. So what happens is the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, who was planning a run for president this time, but wisely, I think, backed off and saw the future, and the future, as he saw it, was Donald Trump returning, which it appears to be. So the thing that I would urge everybody is to look at Abbott's action as he is positioning himself for 2028 or 2032. And so, and you've got this special thing in Texas where you've got the Alamo, you've got you've got Davy Crockett, Jim Bowie, you've got all these historical things going on that show the Texan bravery and all that. So what he decides to do, and has just been ratcheting it up, is to call it an invasion. All right, aging hippie's absolutely right. Abbott is a sadist, which doesn't really bother his supporters or the GOP. And so one of the things, as aging hippie put up, one of the things that he's doing is putting a form of barbed wire up to discourage immigrants from crossing the border. And the Supreme Court ruled, but it's interesting, the ruling says people get this wrong. And this is another thing. You have to be careful to know that, not just to know what you're talking about. People say, oh, he's doing this or he did that. No, what the Supreme Court ruled is that federal authorities, because the border is supposed to be, it's a federal operation, it's not a state operation, that they may take down that barbed wire, and they may take down some mortar barriers that they put up. So they could remove them. They didn't put them up. It did not rule that Texas could not put them up, because that wasn't the legal issue. So we've been throwing words around, and here's a quote from Abbott for anybody who doesn't understand quite how this guy operates. Let me get it right here. The only thing that we're not doing is we're not shooting people who come across the border. Now, as somebody who studied language and taught language for decades and decades, if you say that, first of all, it's the only thing, they're doing everything else. That would fall into that. And obviously they've considered shooting people who come across the border, because it says it's the only thing we're not doing. And it goes on to say, because if you did, the Biden administration would charge you with murder. Shouldn't they? I mean, if you were shooting people, is that murder? But what they're trying to do is this invasion. So, given the last insurgency was January 6th, some people came up with an idea of, let's go down and save the border. And this is where your comment on vigilante operations comes in. They were pledging a convoy of 700,000 truckers to converge this weekend at a place called Eagle Pass in Texas to show support for the Texas authorities and to show what could happen if we needed to mobilize these forces. Now, they're a little short of 700,000. They actually left from a few places, but they left, the main convoy left from Virginia. And by the time it got to Texas today, it's estimated somewhere around 70 to 100 trucks. That's it. A little short of 700,000. But still, the idea is that the danger is there. A lot of people were fearing January 6th. And it was interesting to watch the posts on both sides. Those who feel that January 6th was an insurrection were upset because they don't want to see another insurrectional move like that. But the supporters were also upset because they view it as an attack on patriots. And of course, their view is these truckers, which ended up not to be so many truckers. What it ended up being was a lot of RVs with 2 retired people in them coming down. Most of the quotes I saw tonight before the show went on were from people 70 and older. But what we have is this Texas border showdown, if we will. Now, tomorrow is the big day, I think, as far as speeches are concerned. Somebody can correct me if my numbers are off, but I think it's right. First number I know is correct. It's not just Texas involved in this, okay? 25 other states governed by Republican governors have joined and signed a pledge saying they will support Texas in its resistance. Every Republican governor but one, the governor of Vermont, did not sign on. Some have pledged troops, their own National Guards. As soon as he was whooped by Donald Trump in the primary, Governor DeSantis in Florida, upon his return to his home state, pledged to send troops. And so what you have a couple things going on.
I agree with that with Edge here.
That was actually mentioned, yeah. That is something. The difference was there were real trucker protests that shut down Ottawa. This wasn't, and again, in the sake of accuracy, they pledged that there be a religious component to this. So what did they decide to call it? They called the group God's Army. Okay. God wants them down. I get confused with all that. Anyway, they did say that it would be peaceful. They did say it was religious. They did. I know they did have hot dogs and hamburgers available at the concession stand down there. But there's many problems there. You have the actual immigration. I think you use the word crisis. I think that's true. As long as you don't interpret that this massive, wave of people coming over the border, right, en masse with weapons. They don't. So you have that. You have the reality of that. You have the idea that you have a state, in essence, defying a federal ruling or federal or usurping federal power, because it's a federal government that polices the border. And finally, you have, additionally, you have half of the United States states. Oh, anything good on? Half of the United States joining in. Now, we've talked numerous times on this show about the idea of a civil war. There are political experts who feel this is the closest we've been, the Texas situation, since Fort Sumter and South Carolina. Now, what does it mean? I don't know, Brian, but it doesn't bode well. And the other thing is, we know that there are some solutions or proposed solutions on the table that the Republicans will not go for. And the reason they will not is Donald Trump, who right now is no different than you and I. He's just a citizen of the United States. Mm-hmm. But because he's going to run for president, he has said, do not solve the border crisis now. Do not, because the credit would go to President Biden, and just don't do it. So, your thoughts? That's kind of where we are now. Not in a good position, but that's where we are.
Well, it seems like they keep testing the federal government. In other words, they almost want to have some type of event that happens down there where somebody shoots or does something, and they can say, hey, look, this is what we told you about the government. Because if there's one thing you can say, I think we can agree upon, is this: the whole Trump movement, the whole MAGA movement, is based on a mistrust of government. And it kind of coincided. It was like the perfect storm. So when you have these events, when people, what you just said, the Patriots, when they go to protest, it's more than just usually when the left protests, usually you see posters and chants and this and that. But what we saw January 6th and what we see happening down there's something different about it to me. It's as if they're inciting something. Like big things are going to happen. I don't think anybody, at least most people on the left, don't think, oh, the shit's going down when we go there. No, they're just saying we're going to protest. We're going to do things right. I'm not saying that everybody's perfect on the left.
No. Right. Well, I think it's interesting.
Dave, to me, it seems like protests from the right now are almost looking, for a fight. I mean, they're looking for things like what's happening with Abbott in the Supreme Court, and then you have the Biden administration, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on. I doubt, like you said, that there's only 70 trucks. I don't think much is going to happen, although 70 is not a really small number, but if you're expecting 700,000,
what I find interesting, I was told by a wise old PR guy back when I was a reporter, in my infancy of reporting in the early 70s. He said, if you ever get in this business, he said, don't ever overcommit. Always underclaim, don't overclaim. Meaning, it would be a big difference if you said 70 truckers coming, right? And 700,000 showed up. I would add another caveat. Don't make it so pictures can be. Remember the thing with Donald Trump and the biggest inaugural crowd ever, and it was empty, before you even got to the monument. Things that can be disproved. But anyway, we're there, so maybe we'll know a little bit more tomorrow what Abbott says and the other governors that are there. But
I don't think the federal government's going to do anything there unless something physical.
Oh
happens.
no, they're there to protect, and and again, there's nobody. Well, let me rephrase it. I don't think there's anybody on either party political power who wants an open walk-through border.
No, I mean even most Democrats believe there's a problem with immigration right now.
Right.
The question is, how are you going to solve it? And apparently, it's not going to be solved because now the Republican side doesn't want to solve it right now because it would look like Biden won another.
Right. Well, but that's not the biggest story in the world right now. What's the biggest? It's not Ukraine, Russia. It's not, excuse me. It's not Gaza, Palestine, and Israel. Huge stories there are. And I get, and now, of course, you saw where we did bomb.
Yeah, we're not done. We're
not done. And again, that's something I kind of stay away from because when I say stay away from, my naivete would say don't bomb, but I don't know enough of the details to comment. So I just kind of leave that alone. But it's none of this. It's Taylor Swift, her boyfriend, Travis Kelce, the Super Bowl, and the conspiracy that reaches into the very heart of Americana. You've got politics, sports, celebrity, cult of personality. Doesn't get any bigger than that. I did a quick check this week. There were equal number of stories on Palestine, Gaza, Israel, and Taylor Swift. One's far more important than the other in terms of world culture. But for anybody who's been hibernating for the past few years, Taylor Swift right now is probably which is I think she is in that same rarefied air of Elvis Presley, the Beatles, Michael Jackson, handful of individuals. So what's this? What has led to the right wing and their chief outlet, Fox News, declaring war on Taylor Swift. Well, a few months ago, she shows up at a Kansas City football game, Kansas City Chiefs football game, and they make the announcement that she and the Kansas City tight end, Travis Kelce, are a couple. The first instance of driving the right wing crazy, I think, was, wait a minute, what's she have to do with football, right? That's kind of their sport, right? They wanted that. But now there's this whole reams of information supporting this, that the Kansas City Chiefs are in the Super Bowl because of rigged games, and that's already been determined that they will win the Super Bowl. And either immediately after the game or soon thereafter, Taylor Swift will come out in support with Joe Biden. Okay, so what do we have? If that were to happen, Brian, let's look at the impossibilities of that happening. And we'll just take it from the playoffs. Does that mean that the Miami Dolphins, the Buffalo Bills, excuse me, and the Baltimore Ravens, the three teams that the Kansas City Chiefs beat on their way there to get to this game, were so enamored with Joe Biden and the Democrats that they lost? To go, I mean, it just this week I just read so many false.
Well, you don't believe that they actually believe, not talking about the constituents, but the people who start this up. It just seems to me that they don't have any respect for their constituents because they believe they're that stupid. And in a certain way, maybe people do believe it.
Well, what they do is they take a girl. Now, what is interesting, there was a number of complaints from the right wing that Taylor Swift was also dominating the airways of football. In one game, the camera was on her for 44 seconds. Now, I don't think 44 seconds of a football game is dominating the game. But she is extremely possible. First of all, she was named Times Person of the Year. She now has the highest grossing tour. Her Eras tour is the highest grossing musical tour in history, eclipsing all the other names that we mentioned. There are a lot more female artists today, thank goodness, that are popular than, say, were 20 or 30 years ago. But she has certainly eclipsed Beyonce. She's eclipsed Rihanna. She's eclipsed Lady Gaga. She's eclipsed Madonna. She's at the top. They call her fans Swifties. And she is already out urging young voters to register, not telling them how to vote, but just to register. So, again, that's a sin, according to the right-wing people. And Travis comes along, and now he's under attack. Not, before it was just her, but now he's under attack because he's a spokesperson for COVID.
Right,
yeah. No, they're apparently, what is he, Allstate? Which is the other one? He's not Allstate. Who's the other one? He's a shill for, anyway.
Right, he does...
I forget. It's one of the insurance companies.
Well, no, we get Mahomes does Allstate, but
yeah, no, he does one with Mahomes. But anyway, but the interesting point is
he does do that too. He does that too.
Yeah, as one commentator pointed out, he said, "Oh yeah, I could see why the fix is in for Kansas City. They've never been there before. Oh wait, they won it last year. Mahomes is the best quarterback on the planet right now, and Kelsey's the best tight end on the planet right now." Which is pretty much true. Oh, and wait a minute. They won it. They lost it. They won. This will be, the fourth time in 5 years, the Kansas City Chiefs have been to the Super Bowl. There's not a fix. There's no way There's absolutely no way.
Why didn't they bring this up when, Mike Fisher married Carrie Underwood? He was an athlete. He wasn't with the same level as
but that's what. Well, I think again, it's ever who's driving it. On the COVID side, I urge everybody who's on the platform formerly known as Twitter. I refuse to call it X because I just despise Elon Musk so much. But I go there, see what's up. There's a poster on there, Illuminati bot. So it's playing on the Illuminati, right? Yeah, I agree.
That's a great point.
Make a fortune on it.
If they believe that so much, why don't they do that?
And this was attacking Kelsey, and then went on to say, COVID vaccines are now officially the deadliest drugs in history, and nobody is talking about it. Now, in that rather lengthy tweet, they produced not one scintilla, not one iota of data. They just made the claim. They said, the cover-up is extraordinary. Well, the cover-up, if it isn't true, why would you cover it up, right? I mean, if it's not true, you're not going to cover it up. They also appeal to the idea of celebrity, where they talk about Bill Gates, and they talk about a drug that was a terrible drug in the 60s, thalidomide, if you remember that, with the babies born deformed. And then, of course, at the end, they say, and all of us need to expose the truth. As Tay says, haters gonna hate. Hands yellow, heart red. Hands yellow, heart red. You go, girl. You know what's interesting? I wonder, and some say, maybe the right wing has met its match. Do you really attack the Super Bowl and the Kansas City Chiefs, the second most popular player?
In a very conservative state.
Yeah. Now, of course, we haven't gotten to our friend yet. Fox News, our friends at Fox News, they came up with the idea that it was a Defense Department out of the Pentagon. That's where this conspiracy was hatched. It was a PSYOP operation. Okay, that's crazy, but it really got a lot of traction, right, on right-wing sites. So yesterday, I guess it was, a spokesperson for the Pentagon, Sabrina Singh, posted this on the Pentagon website. We know all too well the dangers of conspiracy theories. So to set the record straight, Taylor Swift is not part of a DoD psychological operation, period. Okay, so you think that might end it, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, that's actually still, because on this right-wing nut side, posters are saying, wait a minute, they wouldn't deny it if there wasn't some truth there. Well, I don't know. I don't know. And it's also worldwide. I don't get it. There have been numerous stories, like, who really cares? But Taylor Swift, as I said, is on the World Tour, and the day before the Super Bowl, she'll be performing in Tokyo, in Japan. And it's a question: could she get back for the Super Bowl? But she doesn't. Right. Yeah, and there's rerouting of planes, and then she's going to fly. She has two. She actually has two private jets. She has enough money to have 40 or 50 or 100 if she wanted. So she'll fly that back, which makes sense. Obviously, you want to see, if you love someone and they were playing the Super Bowl, you'd want to be there if you could be there. And that set off the alarms on the right, where they're saying, oh, she's supposed to be an environmentalist. Well, think about, I mean, not all of us can be 100% environmental all the time. I mean, so yes, there'll be some harm to the environment, her flying this private jet. But to show you the impact that Taylor Swift has right now. Today, the Embassy of Japan here in D.C. issued a statement, and it was really long, it's about 6 paragraphs long, that to do 2 things: assure that Taylor Swift would still be performing in Japan, to let her fans that are going to be at that concert, they're not going to keep her for the Super Bowl, and based on best knowledge, she'll be able to get back in time. So we really have, someone who's international there. Well, let's bring it back to politics. So you've got your favorite losing candidate, Vivek Ramaswamy, or whatever his name is, right? He comes along, and here's his quote, Brian. I want to get this right, so let me hold it up here so I get it. I wonder who's going to win the Super Bowl next month. I wonder if this will make a major endorsement possible from an artificially, culturally propped up couple. So he's here's a guy who just was running for president. Now, here's what gets scary about this. He goes on to say, a conspiracy theory is often nothing more than an amalgam of incentives hiding in plain sight. Once you see that, the rest is pretty obvious. First of all, what the hell is an amalgam? Do you know what? I don't even know what that is. What's an amalgam of incentives? I have no idea what that means. I don't think Vivek does either. Wow. So we've got to see, what does the big dog say? Of course, that would be your favorite orange man, Donald Trump. Well, for once, he's not really attacking Taylor as much as I thought he might. But he's just saying 2 things. He's saying, first of all, I'm more popular than she is. I don't get it. And secondly, I should have been Times Person of the Year, not her. Okay. Donald, if you really want to believe that. Now, obviously, when Guy Lane was with us, he was talking about the impact of money and greed on the world and the environment. It also plays in sports too, Brian. I would not have known the answer to this, but I like to put you on the spot all the time. And Franz, this is going to lead right into what you just put up. Put that up again. Put what Franz just said up. So I'm going to say next leads right into it. Okay. So, Brian, if you wanted to go to the Super Bowl, as of yesterday, what is the average cost of a ticket to the Super Bowl? Do you know?
I don't know.
Wait a minute. Well, go ahead.
It would have to be at this point in time, I imagine they're in the tens of thousands of dollars.
Close, Brian. $9,804. Mm-hmm. Now, you talk about Taylor Swift's impact. So, first of all, that is 69% higher than the Super Bowl last year, which was $5,000. Right,
because I remember
$5.
When Mike, of course.
Yeah, but that's
like 2 or 3.
But so they asked StubHub, which is one of the big ticket resale markets, did they think that this 69% increase had anything to do with Taylor Swift? And they said we don't have statistics for that, but they did have this statistic, which I thought was interesting. 24 hours after Taylor Swift's first appearance at a Chiefs game, the next game they sold 3 times the number of tickets than they did any other game this year. So obviously it has an impact. But what I find interesting is I don't think it's good politics to attack Taylor Swift and the Kansas City Chiefs and the Super Bowl for the right. And also, Sean Hannity has kind of threatened her, don't do this, you know. Fox News is coming, don't do this. Look, Taylor Swift can do whatever she wants. And I saw Scott Baio's name up there. I saw Ted Nugent. You got, don't forget Kid Rock and John Voight and James Woods. I mean, yeah, Trump has it, but he hasn't anything to equal Taylor Swift. And it's no secret that the Biden organization would love to have Taylor Swift endorse them. She is one of the people that does probably have some influence. It's already been proven with her getting young people to register. And I think there are people who would be influenced by her. But I'll be interested to see on Super Bowl day what stories break. And some have them, one of them had her parachuting in to the stadium and taking over the singing of the national anthem. And then at halftime, she and Travis would come out and endorse President Biden. That'd be so cool if they did, you know. I mean, that's not going to happen. But,
it's almost forcing it now.
yeah. Well, I think there's two things that we learn besides the details in this. The absolute insanity of a large portion of right-wing America. And the second is, you know, it must be hard. Nobody ever cared that much when I was going out with my wife before we were married. You know, and what I mean by that is the idea of celebrity sometimes isn't all it's cracked up. Okay. I think, well, let's stop there for a minute. We're talking sports. Brian, when the Super Bowl goes, will you be watching it? And
I watch all Super Bowls, and I imagine I'll watch it again. It's just really tough as an Eagles fan. I mean, I know this is not unusual for people who really like their home team, and they say, you know, if they don't make it, I'm not going to watch it. But if you're a real fan, you do watch it. So I'll probably watch it. I don't like either team. I don't like the 49ers because, you know, they beat up on our Eagles. And I don't like the Chiefs because they beat the Eagles. So I don't even know which team I would root for.
Well, you know, I was hoping, just for the sake of something different, for it to be a Ravens Lions with the Lions winning.
Right. I mean, I think a lot of people wanted the Lions to win.
Yeah, just, you know, because they, you know, it was there. It's not the Eagles. You know, yeah, obviously I'll watch the game. I think I'm going to wait and see what Taylor Swift tells me to do to figure out. I mean, you know, it's just God. Now, the other thing this week too, actually, there was a site on the social media platform formerly known as Twitter that was doing AI-generated nude pictures of Taylor Swift. I'll send you one. I don't even know if I put it. It's so disturbing. And you know, by not a bit of truth put up. Finally, after it got like 47 million, you know, looks or something, they actually took the website down. So in this one story, I guess, you have everything that's pretty much wrong with America. And of course, a central figure of the story, as we said, is Donald Trump. Now, last thing I have for tonight is, you know, you've been asking Mr. Biden to get a little bit tougher. Did you see he made two quotes that were in a Politico article that were pretty tough. Did you see that this week? What he called Trump?
Yes, I think I think he used the F-bomb when it came to Trump.
He said Trump is
F.
A sick fuck. A sick fuck. Yep. Now, that has one meaning, right? If Stormy Daniels said it, it would probably have another. And he also added, what a fucking asshole this guy is. Now, one thing, but that was said privately. You know, I was a little encouraged though, with some of the economic news this week. But again, then you look at the border. So I don't know. I said each week, I'm gonna go out on a limb and speculate because it doesn't matter at all. I think for the first time in a while, based on what I'm seeing, I think that Biden has a better shot than I gave him credit for. I think he just might win, Brian.
Well, I read the headline on CNN yesterday, or maybe it's this morning, that basically he has to win in the north, and it can still be done without the south. And I imagine they're talking about Pennsylvania and
Michigan, Wisconsin, right,
in those three. I just think that it comes to a head. I guess it really doesn't. If Biden does win, and then there's this insurrection feel, it won't happen, because when you control the military is the commander in chief, they shoot back.
Well, and what I don't want to see this happen.
I mean, a tank, has no problem with a Ford F-150, and even if you did have all the guns, the government could put anthrax out, and you wouldn't be able to pull the trigger.
What would become interesting?
I'm not suggesting that, as I've said before. I'm not endorsing that kind of thing. I'm just saying that you have the capability of that.
If you're talking about that, it would be interesting if Trump were president and ordered the military to do something unconstitutional. Would they follow? Because the military is not supportive of the president's views. They're also, like the president, supposed to let me see. Okay, Foggy. Yeah, I can understand that. I will say, though, I took my granddaughter. She's actually seen Taylor Swift in concert twice, once with her grandmother, once with me. I was impressed with her. But the more I read about her, like I said last week, I think she's sort of like Dolly Parton. She also does a lot of good. In every city she performs, she contributes large amounts of money to food banks, just like Bruce Springsteen does. She gave millions of dollars, divided up with a road crew, and the workers that support her. So I think she's basically a pretty good person. We'll be interested, though, to see, can Fox News intimidate, and the right wing, can they intimidate her enough to make her not endorse Biden? Has Biden done things that she doesn't feel she can endorse? That all remains to be seen.
I think she'll just stay out of it,
And I'm gonna go against you on that one. I think she will endorse Joe Biden. I do, but not at the Super Bowl, not at the fixed Super Bowl, which is not fixed. But you know what, Brian? All of a sudden, I don't know if you've been following, not just since that, but more so ever since Donald Trump. Everything in America is now the fix is in, the fix is in, the fix is in. I think there were at least 10 games this year in the NFL where there came this idea that, a call, or the referees control.
No, if your team loses, the fix is in.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. That's kind of.
I mean, look, I understand poor officiating. We saw what happened to Detroit during the year. We saw what happened to the Flyers in 1980 with the offsides. I mean, those things happen. That's just poor officiating. But the idea that there's a fix like there would be in the 1950s boxing,
or the White Sox,
the Black Sox,
the Black Sox,
right? I mean, there have been fixes, but I think what they're saying, this thing is all planned, and this is where you get into this conspiracy head type things, and that's a problem, because then you basically have a society that has a psychosis.
We do have a society
that is a psychosis.
It is a psychosis because, I guess, I mean, at the essence is, if you claim to fix this in because your candidate didn't win, that means you know what's best for you. You know what's best for the world. God should be on your side. These people do believe, a lot of them do believe that no way the right will intimidate Taylor. She's very political. She won't back down. And I think I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with that. But it'll be interesting to what effect can she be
can
used?
She bring people out to vote?
Well, can she bring people? And that's I think the key issue that we know is Trump has a group of supporters
like Kyle Rittenhouse that will go after. somebody.
Well, first of all, they'll come out and then they'll do something like that.
And that Biden, I would say would happen. I could see some, and I'm talking about conspiracies, but I could see you get somebody who has that type of thinking that, this psychosis that there is this conspiracy, they will do that. And I'm sure they've already attempted those type of things, and I'm sure Travis and Taylor Swift have to.
Well, I'm sure Travis. I'm sure they have pretty big bodyguards. I mean, I've seen far less famous people really have not only have their entourage, but they have some pretty large people and some pretty well trained people. But it just this week I was more discouraged by the insanity and the inanity of the right wing than sometimes there are. Which is, like I said, we continue to do our small bit, whatever it is, to make sure that A, they don't win, if we can help it. And if they do, we don't provide them comfort or we don't provide them a rest. Be interesting to see, been very limited, even with all going on. Protest.
They give us
Let's see. I'm going to let Foggy speak for me. Yep. She got 30. That number is correct. That's what I've seen. Not that you need me to verify you. I'm sure that also happened. So, but anyway, Brian, let's see this time. What will we know? We still won't know who the Super Bowl winner is when we do our next show.
That's
but
correct.
We'll be closer.
We'll be a lot closer.
Right? Okay. So last thing, who's going to win? I think if I end up rooting for either team, it'll be San Francisco because for the reason the Eagles are in the NFL, the NFC National Conference. But I think if I had to, I think Kansas City will win. But we'll see.
Because if you have to look at one position where it matters the most, I would say that Mahomes is better than Brock Purdy. Although Brock Purdy, I think he's pretty good.
I think just well, he you know what his nickname was coming in to the league? He was
Purdue
called
Chicken?
Mr. No. He was called Mr. Irrelevant. And the reason was he was the very last player drafted.
Right. But you say he's not that fast, but I think he has good 30-yard speed. I mean, he's tough to bring. He's got strong legs.
He has certainly, if you're the last player drafted in a draft, what would that be? 7 picks times, 32? 200 plus players, and you're the last one drafted. And you turn out to be and do what Brock Purdy's
Look at Marquise Bell from the
did
Bulldogs.
You see?
He wasn't even drafted, and he starts for the Cowboys.
Let's give a shout out to
folks you are not
my
familiar.
hometown.
Marquise Bell plays for the Dallas Cowboys, and he was at our high school 7 years ago.
Yeah, I went there and taught there, and eventually taught there. Brian teaches there now. Yeah, and did you see where I think they're kind of? He got. I didn't even know they had such an award, but it's pretty cool. He got historical Black college and university NFL Player of the Year.
Really?
Yeah, because it's.
And of course, Pacheco went to Vineland
High.
He ran the relays here. I think he won the 100-meter dash.
Oh, it could. Yeah,
he's fast. I mean, he's not world class, I guess, but he was good enough to win the bridge relays at the 100-yard dash. So he was fast.
And that was it's pretty good.
It's
all right, Brian,
impressive.
I'm going to sign off on this end. You're going to sign off for all of us. But to everybody, before I do, thank you, as I always say. There'd be a show without you, not meaning you, Brian, but meaning anybody who's not you, who's listening or viewing. So you really are important, and thank you for your comments. Keep them coming, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, everybody. Good to see you, T-Bone. Good to see you. And Foggy, Joey, Veg. I know Sandy was here. We had Franz. A lot of people were here. And, of course, there were a lot of people incognito, which is fine. Global solidarity. Yeah, we had plenty of guests. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So, all right, Dave, we'll see you next week on Divided We Stand. But we probably won't be streaming on my personal page, but we're still streaming. So, all right. Dave, tell Judy I said hello and have a great night. All right, Dave, thank you. And see you. Bye, everybody.